yeah, eating clean is cool and everything, but have you ever just sat down and had like 30 cookies and then you know, you feel a little bit trash like an hour later, but you can just go to bed and not deal with that, even though it's 4 p.m. So that's probably my first tip. Nah, don't do that, but my name's Shay, I'm a nutritionist and an athlete, and let's figure out what is the best and, I guess, low impact way to fit in some trash in your diet and hopefully don't deal with the consequences instead of just like throwing it in there and dealing with it later. So let's go. The first thing to touch on is micronutrients, right? Junk food or empty calories, they're called empty because they don't really have any micronutrients, and you need your micronutrients just to keep your body running optimally, right? Some people will say the 80-20 rule, 80% good food, whole food, 20% junk. Kind of. The thing is, you can eat 100% clean food and still be missing the mark with your micronutrients. See the chicken, broccoli, rice diet, it still misses the mark on a lot of things, even though it's all clean food. So I would say the quickest way is just to like throw your diet in Chronometer, your regular diet, and see what you're missing. It's really that simple. It's gonna tell you what you're missing. It's gonna tell you the quickest ways just to like bump those numbers up a little bit. Really useful tool. And even a good diet isn't gonna hit the mark on every single day, but if you're hitting most of the markers or at least getting close most days, you're probably fine. I'd say zinc, iron, and omega-3 are 3 things you wanna look out for, because these 3 are really likely to determine how good you're actually feeling and how much energy you have. So make sure those are at least decent. You can say vitamin D as well, but it's hard to regulate how much you're actually getting from the sun. So moving on, let's get into one of the components, sugar, a hallmark of a lovely, filthy snack. So the main issue here is the rapid blood sugar spikes, which might make you feel a bit lethargic. It can promote inflammation. There are, of course, long-term issues as well, but to be honest, if you're in good shape and you have some sugar, your metabolic conditioning is such that it's going to deal with it pretty efficiently. So it's more of an issue if you're out of shape, and then it'll make you more out of shape because of the inflammation. So how do we alleviate this? Well, we got to understand insulin. Insulin spikes when we eat carbs to turn that sugar, which, well, all carbs end up in sugar, to deal with them, get them out of your blood so they're not lingering, which causes the issues. So what happens? Well, one thing to understand is your insulin sensitivity, your response system, is actually a lot weaker in the evening, so you'd be better off having your sugary treats earlier on in the day, if I were to recommend a time. And furthermore, it's actually, your sensitivity is actually sky high right after training, and so that can be a good time. And additionally, if you have sugar right before training, it just gets loaded into the muscle as soon as you start training, so you're kind of circumventing that blood sugar spike as well. But the main thing is, if you just are feeling a little bit hungry and then have, I don't know, a sugary snack, your insulin is going to spike to deal with that sugar, and then it's going to crash. And then the crash is going to make you feel hungry, and you're just going to want to eat more. So that's where the problem is. So I'd say with sugary things as well, it might be better just having a little bit after you've already had like a solid meal, because then your hunger probably isn't going to spike again because you've already had that decent meal, right? And it's all because you've had that decent meal, the absorption time for the sugar is actually going to be a lot slower, because 2 variables to, you know, metabolic speed and digestion speed, the amount of food consumed and the amount of, I guess, fat in the meal. So usually if you just had a decent meal, there's probably going to be some fat in there. Slows down the blood sugar spike to, you know, smooth it out a bit. So that's a good way to go. So let's get into fats now. Some of these really high calorific foods are just saturated fat and sugar bombs, because they're easy to eat a lot of, and because sugar is just a pure carb, it's 4 calories per gram, and then the saturated fat, usually they use like, I don't know, palm oil or butter. That's just 9 calories per gram. So these bombs can end out at like 5 calories per gram, which is a lot. If you think about it, for 1,000 calories, you're just having like 200 grams of food, which isn't that much. I had a friend who used to dirty bulk, and he'd always hit up the bake section in the supermarket and just come home with these abominations, which were like, you're gonna bulk. If you are enjoying, please be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing, and I will Uber Eats you 6 burgers. No fries though, dude, I'm on a budget. And I think these things can be really detrimental if you're on a bit of a calorie restriction diet. I don't recommend hard calorie restriction, but because these things are low volume but high calorie, you're just gonna eat them, you're gonna overstep your marker for calories, and you're still gonna feel hungry, and you'll also miss your macros because they're just devoid of any nutrients. So that's the thing. So again, with the sugar, I think it's just better just to have a little bit, maybe after you've already had a decent meal, so you don't overeat on these, because it can be really easy. Particularly, like, I've tried to dirty bulk when I was a lot younger, and it definitely works, if I'm being honest. But another thing to touch on is oxidized oils. So basically with cooking oils, when you heat them up, certain ones are unstable, the seed oils, and this can be pro-inflammatory, really bad for your body. So usually fast food I would just avoid. Another thing with fast food is comparatively to say like a bag of candy, right? The fast food is becoming a whole meal. So in that meal, you're not getting that much micronutrient value compared to if you're having a decent meal and then a bit of sugar afterward, you're still getting that decent meal in. So a solid fast food meal can be like, I don't know, 2,000 calories, but you're really not getting much out of it. So that's probably something I would avoid. So let's reel it back in. What are some of the bitter things you can eat? Well, I don't think chocolate's that bad, to be honest. Some say, oh, dark chocolate's got all these flavonoids, anti-inflammatory, it's really good. Research there is lacking. It doesn't have a crazy amount, enough to do a difference, but I guess it's there. Darker chocolate. Popcorn's not bad either. It's actually got some micronutrient value, and I guess it's low in sugar. Just don't get any with trans fats. Those are not good. Frozen yogurt and I guess ice cream aren't as bad as some of the other things you could buy. You know, they ask for like sugar and saturated fat, but it's not a crazy amount compared to like some of these baked goods that I've had in the past, dude. Trust me. Of the fast food, I'd recommend Chick-fil-A actually, because they use peanut oil, which is a lot more stable than some of these seed oils, so you won't end up with that inflammation, which is really helpful. And you also get the chicken, which isn't too bad for you. The majority of the processed food I eat is just candy before training. It's just kind of my go-to, and then I usually don't crave it too much later on just because I've already had some. So that's what works for me. But I think the key points here are have some after a decent meal. If you're having sugar, have it either side of training. And that should stop you from most of the pitfalls. Let me know what you thought about this, what's your go-to, and I will see you in the next one.